moving. All right.
Item number 1 on the agenda is item number 2 on the agenda is approval of the Budget Committee minutes from March 19, 2026.
I've moved. Councilmember McCarran is seconded. 3 yeas to approve the minutes.
All right. Item number 3 is motion M26-142, which is the civil service contract to appoint Jay Ginsburg as one of their hearing officers. This has to come before budget pursuant to Rule 57.
All right. Do we have anyone from the administration who's going to talk about these next items? Yes. Can you speak into the microphone and introduce yourself? You also have to sign in.
Okay, I'm Christina Carroll. I'm the lawyer for the commission. And I want to point out that there are typos on Jay Ginsburg's contract. There's a December 31, 2005 that should be 2025. And under the last whereas clause, compensation should begin January 1, 2026.
All right. Do we need to amend this?
The motion is correct. It's just the contract.
The underlying contract. Ashley, do we need to?
That is a civil service contract, so the attorneys can amend the contract. If the motion is correct, we're voting on the motion to approve.
All right, let's go ahead and do this. Jay Ginsburg is an attorney currently serving as a hearing officer for the Civil Service Commission. This is a 1-year contract for $70,000. Funds have already been budgeted, but the council must approve pursuant to Rule 57. Any comments from the dais? Any public comment? Councilman McCarran, I'll move. Councilmember McCarran seconds. We have 4 yeas.
Item number 4 is also a civil service contract to appoint Big Easy Law Group. That's motion M26-143.
Any comment about this one?
This is the second hearing officer. Bryce Murray is the labor and employment lawyer who serves as the hearing officer under this contract, and this is his first year.
Okay, so
maybe it's a year and a half.
Okay, he's currently serving as a hearing officer. This is a 1-year contract for $25,000. Funds have already been budgeted, but the council must approve pursuant to Rule 57. Any comments from the dais? If not, I'll move. Seconded by Councilmember McCarran. Councilmember Willard, can you vote your machine? 3 yeas, it passes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The next items are the budget ordinances. I'm not sure if you want to hear from someone from the administration. Okay.
Yeah, is anyone here for item numbers 5?
Item number 5 is ordinance calendar number 35,405 and 406. Anyone
This
from
is for the film office. Is anyone here who can speak on what this is? If not, we can move on to item number 6, and we'll defer.
Item number 6, they're all by request ordinances. So I'm not sure how efficient we can be moving through them. All right.
Hey, Brandy, can you speak on item number 5 and 6?
Oh, I was coming up for number 6, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, so I can tell you what I know about number 5. So number 5 is the funding that our film office receives from the New Orleans Tourism and Culture Fund. So they received $125,000. And so this funding is to fund positions, because right now we only have 1 person in that office and some other operating. And this funding is generally recurring. So ever since I've been here, we get money between $150 and $125 per year. So we are confident we'll be able to also fund this position going forward.
Okay, any questions from the dais? If not, I'll move to approve. Seconded by Councilmember McCarran. 3 yeas. Thank you.
Okay. And item number 6 is ordinance calendar number 35,407.
So this ordinance is for the reallocation of existing general fund appropriation to ensure the city is compliant with the city charter requirements regarding the funding levels for the Office of the Inspector General and the Office of the Independent Police Monitor. This ordinance will transfer $564,541 from miscellaneous other operating, and it will support mandated budget allocations for these offices.
And we have the money in our budget.
Yes, it's already, this is not new money coming in, we're just moving money from someplace else to the other, yes.
All right. Any questions on this one? If not, I'll move to approve. Seconded by Councilmember McCarron. I need 2 more votes, please. That one passes.
Item number 7 is ordinance calendar numbers 35,408 and 409. I believe these are to transfer funds for the sex offender registry positions.
Is anyone here from NOPD who can speak on this, or anybody? All right, come on down.
Good evening, how you doing? I'm
Good.
Detective Ruben Henry, assigned to New Orleans Police Department, Sex Offender Registration.
All right, and do you know what this ordinance does?
From what I was told, that this was to allow us to transfer money from the 241 Sex Offender Registration Fund into overtime fund so it can be properly tracked.
And from my understanding, it will cover overtime costs for 3 to 4 officers to improve efficiency and effectiveness of the sex offender and child predator registration process. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, any questions from the dais? I'll move. Seconded by Councilmember Willard. 4 yeas.
All righty. Item number 8 is ordinance calendar numbers 35,410 and 35,411. Dr. Vecno is approaching.
Hey there.
Hi.
Thanks for having me. This is an ordinance to increase the amount of opioid settlement funds for programs this year. As you know, we've gotten opioid settlement funds for the last few years. As we've been preparing what we're going to do with them, that fund has built up. I'm happy to go into what we do with the funds. It's a pretty robust set of offerings. But as we are funding some of our programs, not with general funds, but with opioid, we just needed to increase the amount that we had budgeted this year.
Got it. Any questions from the dais on this one? If not, I'll move to approve. Seconded by Councilmember Willard. 4 yeas. And I think you have the next one, Dr. Vegna.
Yes, I sure do. This is exciting. This is some grant money that we got to do a Healthy Brain initiative. As our team is trying to address chronic disease, we know that Alzheimer's disease, stroke, neurovascular diseases are some of the major killers of our constituents. And so this is a small amount of money, but it's going to allow us to have a focus on primarily education about dementia, Alzheimer's, that we hope to grow into a larger initiative.
Okay, great. Any questions about this from the dais? I'll move to approve. Seconded by Councilmember McCarron. 4 yeas. Dr. Vegna, if you don't mind, if you could stay up here for item number 10, which involves rabies vaccination.
Yes.
Sure. And this is ordinance calendar number 35,419 by Councilmember Harris.
So this would increase the amount of money that the City of New Orleans can charge for a rabies tag. It provides for an administrative fee in the amount of $2 for each annual dog or cat license tag issue, and an annual dog or cat license tag fee of $20 for each unspayed or unneutered dog or cat. It also provides for the reduction or waiver of fees in the case of hardship, since we do provide, SPCA does provide those services for people who don't have the means to do so. Any questions for Dr. Vegna or myself on this one?
And I know SPCA is here. There's Anna as well.
Hey, Anna.
I'll just say that the fees have not been raised in over a decade, and these fees will bring us in line with Jefferson Parish and other similar parishes, so they're not over and above. They will also help us fill the gap that we know that the SPCA, or the Humane Law Rescue, which is our contract with SPCA for animal control services. They won't fill the whole gap, but they will help us fill the gap caused by budget issues.
Great. Any questions for Dr. Vegno on this one? If not, I will move to approve. Seconded by Councilmember King. 5 yeas. Thank you, Dr. Vegno.
Item number 11 is ordinance calendar number 35,421 by Councilmember Harris by request. And I believe this is a NORA ordinance to enter into a CA, and we have someone from NORA approaching.
And we have Liz Holman
And Liz.
from the Office of Community Development.
Yes.
Hey y'all, this is the ordinance for the Housing Trust Fund CEA. We've been working on this with Nora and Finance New Orleans. It's a 10-year, three-party CEA. It'll allow them to administer the fund. I think we all know they have really good capacity and experience running programs like this. I'm happy to answer any questions or give some more details if y'all would like.
Any questions on this one? And we just appointed three new board members to finance and one to Nora.
Yes.
You're very lucky. All right, so I'll move to approve. Seconded by Councilmember Willard. Any one more vote? 5 yeas. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Item number 12 are all of the civil service pay plan rule amendments. It's my understanding that only 12R is going forward today.
That's correct. Do we
All right.
have anyone here from Parks and Parkways?
And 12R is motion M2682 to appoint a golf course superintendent.
Hi, I'm Sharon Brown, Chief Operation for Parks and Parkways.
Do you want to talk about what this does?
Oh, yes, this position is, first of all, it's the position that's over at Joe Bartholomew Golf Course. This position would allow us the opportunity to focus on not only the greens, the golf course itself, but ensure that it is brought up to par, but as well as ensuring that revenue is maxed out, and it is a pillar of the community, and reaching out as ambassadors to make sure that we maintain it that way. It is also an incentive to, in the job description for this position, to have their general commercial license to apply pesticides over the golf green, which is required. This will provide also day-to-day operations over the course, the pro shop, as well as the grounds. And this particular position will allow for us to be able to focus on some of those hard areas that have been overlooked because we don't have direct oversight right now. So this will managing the current staff that's there and any future staff that's been allocated to the Joe Bart Golf Course.
Great, and just council members, the salary is $75,170, and this position is expected to help generate revenue for this particular golf course. Are there any questions? If not, I'll move to approve. Seconded by Councilmember King. 5 yeas, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll defer items 12A through Q to the next budget meeting, as well as S through U.
Okay,
Alrighty. Item number 13 are the CAO and finance budget presentations. And I believe first we're doing the February 2026 budget report and executive summary from the CFO.
who do we have from the CAO's office to talk about this? Come on down. All right, just for everyone's sake, if you could introduce everyone at the dais, and we can get to the February 2026 budget reports.
Absolutely. I'm sitting to my left, Abby Vien, who is Director of Performance and Accountability. I'm Joe Giarusso. To my right, Alyssa Rambo, who is Finance Director, and Brandy DeLarge, who is Assistant CAO of the budget. And so I think members, what we have teed up right now is the budget reports. I'll let Ms. Rambo report on those since those are her domain, and I'm happy to check back to the monthly budget report, or I'm happy to go through my budget report first, whatever the council prefers.
It makes sense to me to do February, and then we'll go into
Sounds
the
great.
monthly. Hello, Ms. Rambo.
Hello, just trying to get my notes out and in order. All right, so good afternoon, council members. Thank you again for the opportunity to present in front of you today. I have February 2026 financial updates. I'm going to walk us through our financial position key revenue updates and trends, staffing and spending, and then we'll close to see what this means for us at this date and the months ahead. Before I move into the details, I want to remind you all and the members of the audience that the city is still in the process of completing our 2025 audit, and as a result, some of these figures are subject to potential audit adjustments. What that means is that the variances in some of these areas here are timing and classification issues. They are not representative of underlying issues with our performance this year. The data still provides a valuable directional view where we are trending, and we expect reporting accuracy to continue to improve each month, and especially as we finalize the year-end audit. All right, so with that said, let's start with our executive summary here. Year to date, we're presenting with a strong position where revenues are exceeding expenditures by approximately $91 million. You can see that in that center column under year to date, under net position row. Total revenues came in at $225 million, which is about $6 million over our budget, year to date, February 2026. At the same time, total expenditures were essentially on target, coming in slightly below the expected benchmark. This positive net position reflects solid revenue performance combined with controlled spending early in the fiscal year. Moving on to our revenue collections report, I'll direct your eye to the far right, and that grayish blue bar represents our total actual year-to-date revenue of $225 million, compared to the red bar of $219 million and prior year of $201 million. Now remember when I suggested that there may still be some audit adjustments? This is one of the areas where we could see it. So we would maybe go down a bit, but nothing to be of concern at this point when we transfer over to our December. Overall, revenue trends are positive and performing to expectations, which is a key contributor to the city's surplus for the month.
So for personnel and other operating, year to date, our combined personnel and other operating expenditures total approximately $133.9 million, and that represents about 16.7% of the city's annual adopted budget. This figure reflects restated January expenditures to correct the timing of certain costs between January and February. These adjustments ensure that expenses are aligned with the appropriate reporting period. When we compare actual spending to year-to-date benchmark, personnel costs are trending slightly above, while other operating expenditures are trending below. When combined, total spending is generally in line with expectations for this point in the fiscal year. For our overtime spending, our expenditures for February 2026 are generally consistent with prior year levels. However, it is important to note last year's Mardi Gras occurred in March, which affects direct month-to-month comparisons. When we compare overtime spending during the Mardi Gras periods, 2026 spending is approximately $1 million lower than 2025. Year-to-date, overtime spending remains within the adopted budget of $38.9 million, with approximately $9.2 million expended through February. And I think we all saw the news story recently about the trends we're seeing in overtime, just putting that additional management and oversight by the CAO, getting us to some great strides there. For our staffing, as of February 28, 2026, our vacancy rate is about 6%. That represents about 270 unfilled positions across various funding sources. These are not our general fund. This is about 94% of our positions that are budgeted being filled right now. Due to the ongoing hiring freeze, departments are only filling essential or revenue-generating positions. As a result, vacancies are being managed strategically to maintain critical operations while controlling personnel costs. The largest concentrations of vacancies are within the Aviation Board, the Mayor's Office, Library, and New Orleans Recreation Development Commission. In summary, personnel spending, overtime, and staffing levels are being actively managed, and at this stage in the year remain aligned with the city's financial and operational expectations.
All right. Back to me just for a recap and to show that our fund balance for the year, as you recall, we started off at 60 million. This is the consolidated general fund balance, starting off at 60 million for the year. And with our combined activity year-to-date through February 28th, we are now at 165 million. I'm not even going to try to read this number. 165 million year-to-date, February 28th, 2026. I did add an extra page in this month's report. We did have to restate January's figures. This was a reporting error on our part. When we pulled the numbers, we did have some of February's expenses in the year-to-date number when we ran the report for January 31st. So we are now presenting January restated here, which then ties into the year-to-date numbers I presented first off today. And that concludes my report. If you have any questions, I'm open to entertaining.
Any questions on the February 2026 budget reports? If not, CEO Giarrusso, you want to take it away?
Yes, thank you. Let Abby pull up the report here for 1 second. All right, members, I want to continue to thank you for our partnership and our open dialogue when it comes to the state of the city's budget and meeting with us, both obviously here in chambers as well as one-on-one. I think the two things I want to really focus on today are both progress and visibility. Some of the visibility that I'm going to talk to you about today is things that you know. Some of the things are things that we've discussed that we're going to discuss further here in chambers. And some of them, as Brandy alluded to, are things that we know that we're making even more visible. So the public and you have as much confidence as possible in the work the administration is doing. The first slide I'm going to show as part of this progress, it relates to, as Alyssa referred to earlier, the general fund balance as of April 10th, 2026, which is a little over $13.6 million. Candidly, I expected this number to be lower and that we would actually start dipping into the cash management fund at this point, but really as a result of, I want to say, everybody's management, particularly the finance department led by Alyssa, but also a constant streams of no from the CAO's office, you're getting to what this number is. Now, I want to take a second pause on cash management because I know I showed you last month a number of different ways that we planned on getting here, but I want to take a step back about something that also we are looking at and that is more cumbersome, and as I've said before, what we've inherited from the Cantrell administration as being chaotic and complex. And those are trying to look at fund balances the city has on paper, but that do not seem to be what the paper actually shows. As the council knows, but I think is worth discussing publicly, one of those is Fund 5141, which is a short-term rental fund passed by a previous council that seeks money from the nightly fees for short-term rentals the city then is supposed to use for short-term rental enforcement, for code enforcement, potentially for other things that are directly related to this. The purpose of my asking both Alyssa and Abby to start pulling this is so if we had money that was in fund balance in those places, that we would go there first and use that as part of our cash management plan instead of not. In preparation for the meeting today, I went back to my emails to see when I started looking through, and I was both surprised by the volume and how early we started asking about this at the beginning of March as we're trying to build this now. And I will tell you, on paper, the number was about $9 million, and I got ping-pong back and forth about it's $9 million, it's $9.5 million, it's $10 million, it's $11 million, it's $9.5, and grew frustrated, candidly, because the number kept on evolving and changing. until I went downstairs to 3 to visit Alyssa, who told me at that point, it's actually $0. And so I say all of this to you because I know from your position, what the council is looking for is transparency and accountability. I also say it because of somebody who sat in that chair before. I know you all get asked the question all the time, how come the council didn't know about what happened in the past? And the answer is because the operating cash was moving back and forth among accounts, and the council had no way of knowing. So now our charge is doing a couple of different things. Number one is literally Alyssa, while she's trying to manage cash flow, while she's working on the audit, is reconciling all of these different accounts to see how much, if any, money is there. So it is a frustrating process, I know, for you. It is a frustrating process for us. It is frustrating because you would think that anybody would be able, and I will say, I kept on saying, but the number says $9 million on the piece of paper. How is it possibly 0 in the bank? But that's what the answer is. And so before I got to the news of how we built the cash management fund and the great lengths that went to, I thought it necessary to talk about the mismanagement of the past administration, the fact that that was not disclosed to the council in terms of last year, and where things stand. And as we are pivoting, I think Alyssa's doing more than building the airplane while flying it. She's fabricating, manufacturing, making sure it has gas. It is a Herculean effort to try to do all these things, and I don't want it to be lost that part of what progress is not linear, but that we have to disclose to everybody what we're seeing, and we thought it was incumbent for the council to know in real time as we're learning to.
So just to summarize really quickly before going to Councilmember McCarron, we thought in the STR fund there was between $9 and $9.5 million, and it turns out because of movement of money by the past administration, there is $0 in that account.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that, council member, is, and I know you'll feel strong about this, unbeknownst to the last council as well.
Councilmember McCarron.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've had conversations about this, but can you, I guess, let us know that what the policy was as far as like past administration and reconciliation of funds that have a positive fund balance?
So from what I can tell, the fund balance or fund-to-fund reconciliation for those that have positive balances was not taking place. And maybe it wasn't as a priority because it had a positive balance. And so those that had the negative is where they were focusing on that work to make sure, is it truly negative? Who owes who money? As you know, as we work through this and to completely say that the money is not or was not there, it was also because, so when we first started talking about the number of bank accounts that we have here, there is a number of bank accounts and the purpose of each is not specifically known. However, something like this may cause us to need more bank accounts. So for every special revenue fund, for example, a revenue fund like this one, we would want a bank account specific to this so that if you guys ask for that information, I could show you the bank balance rather than some type of brass report that doesn't explicitly mean that the cash is in the bank specifically for that purpose.
And I know I know the answer to this question, but have you since changed the policy of the way that you reconcile records and funds that have a positive fund balance?
It's been a slow process because we're also trying to do the audit, so we can't catch up on doing this kind of stuff for 26 yet. We're still trying to make sure that 25. I've alerted our auditors that we will, like some more substantive testing on this area so that they can opine on it. That's the other thing, that materiality doesn't always, meet, or these accounts doesn't always meet their materiality standards. And so therefore, they may have not looked at some of these as well either. So, with my notice to them, they will be looking at things a little differently and then comparing our actual fund balances 12/31/25 to the actual cash in the bank, and then we will know what funds are short of that cash and which ones aren't.
And I think it's one last thing important to point out too, is that the reports that we were given in the past had this number listed on there. And so I know you all are working on ensuring that those reports are now going to be presented to us in a more accurate way.
We want to be able to say that reporting that equals cash where it is actually cash. There is some receivable or payable, component to that fund balance number, but we will always be able to reconcile back to the cash. And so, right now we're trying to work through our cash flow and the cash management fund itself, but when do we replenish that 5141 bank account? If we create a new bank account for it, when do we put that money there? And what is the proper timing to do that?
And council member, just to round out your point, like, if something is on a piece of paper that comes from the administration, whether it's the prior or the current, the council and the public should be able to rely on. And so when we provide information to you, and this includes my shop, and I think I speak, we want it to be right. And obviously, we are committed to being as transparent and accountable. I'm sure there will be mistakes along the way, but when there are, we're going to tell you real fast, so you don't have to guess.
Thank you.
Councilmember Morrell.
Thank you. I just wanted to add 2 quick points to that disclosure. Number one, I know we had this conversation yesterday, Joe. When it comes to this fund in particular, there is actual language in the ordinance that requires the council to affirmatively take money out of this fund. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So essentially, even though it's more than likely, Brandy, this money was shifted to the general fund, the fact that that was done was in circumvention of the actual law at the time. Because I know that it's important to make that kind of distinction, because generally speaking, and that's part of what we're fixing in the charter amendment that's going this fall, when money was moved around previously, administrations were given broad authority to basically reconcile the budget by moving money around without council disclosure. But in this instance, the reason why so many of us were kind of caught flat-footed is the law specifically says the administration can't do that, and they did it anyway. Correct?
That's correct. That's correct, Council.
And I guess from our perspective going forward, I think that it's very important, as Alyssa, as you're trying to reconcile what money we have, we can no longer make the assumption that the prior administration kept good books or followed the law. So you have to go in line by line, checking account by checking account, because this kind of revelation shows that in all likelihood, unless you go to the bank and make sure the money's there, it might not be there right now. So
We're rebuilding.
I appreciate the work you're doing. I appreciate the fact that we are going to come together and figure out how to use that fund going forward, whether it's for CAB or other resources, and together own how that money is going to be spent.
And Councilmember Morrell, I think that's the biggest point of all this, is that the budget is an ownership process, is that the council's responsibility is to allocate and ours to create, but that means it's got to be joint, and that information has to be equal, so you, as the council, know what we understand.
Do we know where the $9 to $9.5 million went? Not yet.
Not yet.
No, not yet is
Not
the
yet.
answer.
That's correct, yeah.
And
Not
you're
yet.
trying to-
We're working on that. I'm working with the OPA team, looking at the data, trying to come up with some way to rebuild our records. That's what I'm mentioning, rebuilding, because we can't rely on the balances that we saw or that we've been provided. So we're rebuilding the records to make sure that we can then validate against the year-end numbers.
So this money is either floating around City Hall, or it's been paid out, or it's disappeared somewhere.
My guess is it was spent last year when, the going got tough.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, and that's, listen, members, again, I want to thank you for working together on this, but it's also why we've been so insistent on discipline. And sometimes I get fussy internally about if it's not related to fixing this, then it's in the major quality of life issues and of course the needs that the mayor or the council has, but this is what our first priority has to be. Now, at the flip side, let me say this. If you look at the cash management fund number, that is $89 million. That is actually sitting in a bank, Councilmember Harris, not floating out there, not floating somewhere. It is in a account that we have labeled specifically for this purpose. I will also say that candidly, as somebody who is responsible for building this, both on the transition side and now on the administration side, I'm kind of really surprised, if not almost shocked, that as we sit here in mid-April, there's nearly 90% of the fund already in here. And I credit that in large part both to the administration, the work the CAO's office has done, the work the finance, and of course the council for continuing to lift these issues up. And again, members, I'm going to take some time with this because I do think it is important for us to go through each of the items that make part of this cash management fund so that way you can see where we are in process and again, bring visibility and show the progress, and in this case, the significant progress that's been made. As it says in the little note below, the cash management fund includes about $22.5 million from Sewage and Water Board. You'll also remember that approximately $4 to $5 million of the Sewage and Water Board receivable was used for NOPD retention bonuses. So in actuality, when we projected as a council when I was there, and then later in REC of $29.5 million, we're really close to having hit that number, and I think Sewage and Water Board owes us more as well. The next one, I want to make sure that Kim DeLarge and Shalita White and his group really receive a lot of recognition about this federal reimbursable because they've worked overtime to get this money into the city's coffers. You may not remember, but the last presentation we showed that our model was built on $13.5 million in federal grant receivables, and Kim and Shalita have exceeded that already as we sit here in mid-April. And that number is not 13.5, but 17.8 million. We also received $15 million as a transfer from New Orleans Building Corporation. That was built into our model. Right next to it, you'll also know something that's a little bit different that I want to explain, which is, remember Steve Nelson pointed out to us that Sewage and Water Board was sitting on $14 million of bond funding for an unfunded state mandate. Instead of taking that money completely out of bond funding and switching it out, what we did was we categorized it against American Rescue Plan Act dollars that we use for the Sewage and Water Board station. So now we get to recognize it back as operating cash without touching any money per se in the bond fund. In addition, I want to give kudos to the prior council in particular for two reasons on Wisner. Number one is it's higher than it had been in the past. And number two, the only reason it's at $10 million is A, because the council fought the past administration and got a settlement with a number of the named defendants. And B, as a result of that, it also said it wanted to conserve that money to meet the cash needs of 2026. And then you'll also remember, members, that our cash model was built on $8.5 million being reclassified from ARPA itself as a result of the cancellations we did, which have been painful in some cases, though the majority of this comes from downsizing the internal administrative office and the mayor's office and CAO's office. We're actually a little bit higher at $9.3 million. So I say all of that and want to go into all the detail here on purpose because finding $90 million in 4 months is no easy task. And part of the reason that we're here is really because of the dedication of the council and the mayor for making sure that we've made this a priority. The next slides, members, I'm going to show you are about also discipline and progress as well. This one just got to you this morning, and this was important to us to show too. This is about general fund travel reduction, and really I think the note below says everything that you need to know. Between Q1 2026 and Q1 2025, there's been a 90% reduction in general fund spending on travel. I'm going to say that one more time. There has been a 90% reduction on general fund spending on travel. So if you look at it, obviously the numbers from Q1 2025 were 88,000. general fund this year, 7,800, and that's why you see such a massive reduction. And I think, is both a credit to the fact that this administration, supported by the council, has put into the initiatives to limit it, and also the department's getting the message that there's just not going to be general fund travel as there was in the past.
And your current CAO policy is that you have to approve any travel expenses. Is that correct?
That's correct. And really, I will let you know, council member, I've been pretty rigid about it. And in fact, the 7,800 is primarily for one entity that need to have mandatory training, which is part of the exceptions in the CAO policy. But I went back and forth them a number of times to make sure that this was the right number.
So no first-class travel?
No first-class travel.
All right. I just had to get that dig in.
No, you got it. In addition to that, I should, before I really switch to the next slide, because I made my note here for Councilmember Morel in particular, NOPD has hired its controller. She is being onboarded right now, and her official first day is on Monday.
Let me interrupt you there. Sure. And this is something that I'm very, very concerned about, are the DNA lab positions. And I assume that we got you the information that you needed from Commander Gernon and Dr. Kelly. What is the status right now of your review of that information to show that the DNA labs positions can actually pay for themselves and that there's money for them?
Great question. So right now, and much to probably some of my team's chagrin, anytime I get something that is outside the spending freeze that isn't, I know for a fact, revenue generating or a need, I have the Office of Performance and Accountability run the numbers. I can tell you that I've had a couple of different instances where a department has sent me something and OPA has concluded that what the department sent me was wrong, and so we shouldn't abide by what they want. We have had another instance recently where we got a department who, some of what they sent us was right, but some of what they sent us wasn't accurate. So I did the same thing with this inquiry as well. And so on April 14th, so Tuesday this week, OPA sent some questions to the lab. They were about the cost to process the 400 cases, and they're looking for the raw data of the calculation. They also note the projected savings per case for testimony fees, and they had a number of questions related to that. They also say that there's potential to generate a little less than $900,000 and how those costs are going to be generated and what the cost per case is. Do you have anything to add, Abby?
Yeah, I got an update this morning. The innovation manager on our team working on this is headed to the crime lab Monday to meet with them about this.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Morel.
It's funny you should bring that up. So how long has the Office of Performance and Accountability been in existence?
It's been here for a number of years. Well, you're going to read more about it in the paper soon, council member.
Well, I asked that because I was asked by a reporter recently about it, and I said I wasn't aware we had one. And what I would find very interesting for purposes of this budget committee is actually find out what they were doing the previous 8 years, because I don't know, when you're looking at the ramp up to the kind of ridiculous level of spending that we saw with no results, and you look to the fact now that we are having to essentially rebuild the budget from scratch because of the implosion of ill-spent money, what was this office doing during that time period? Because if they had been kicking the tires during the course of the last administration, a great example, an Office of Performance and Accountability, when you had DPW using general fund money to pay for JIR projects versus going through the regular process of seeking reimbursement from the state timely, I would think an Office of Performance and Accountability would have said, this is a really bad idea.
Well, Councilmember, you're making a really good point, because obviously I don't know what they were doing then, but you can only rely and use the data. If
you were the chair of budget. Did you know that committee existed?
I think I knew that there was an office. Did I know what they did? No.
Okay.
Candidly, absolutely not. Now let me, but to flush out what you're saying, let me tell you what they were. I pulled up literally this email because Abby has been telling folks about what they're doing. I'm just going to give you the list. I would scroll down for too long. I'll give you 2 or 3 from each innovation manager's portfolio. Adam Gordon right now is working on staffing model, jail healthcare, overtime spending and projections, and 4 other things. Becky Houtman is working on brass dashboard expansion and also working with Alyssa to help her with that, as well as permanent licensed zoning dashboards which you'll see more about next week. Cameron McPhee is working on centralized contracting, permit stat, ongoing dashboard projects. Eric Cherry is working on reconciliation mapping, things for property management, retention pay, Mardi Gras outside deputies closeout, etc. Mark Salvador, we have an internal furlough dashboard, terminal leave payment, transfer of parking to NOPD, which I think the council is getting ready to receive soon too, as well as about 9 or 8 other things. Ryan McGuire on procurement policy, city council policy oversight, executive branch organizational chart. So these folks, I don't know what cliche you want to use, small but mighty, punch above their weight. They get the data that I want to present when we meet with you, and a lot of what you're going to see in this presentation is directly attributable to their work. But related to that, and I guess also in progress, and again, I want to thank both the council as well as the press, because when we met with you in February, the property tax collections were looking pretty dire. I think we were under or at 40%. We're at 92% now. And in fairness, this is about as high as it gets. If Alyssa gets another couple percentage points, gets to 93, 94, 95, she'll be a hero. So it's impressive work about what's going on. Alyssa alluded to this, and maybe we're now on our third victory lap about it, but I do think it merits disclosure once again, which is the overtime spending. It is down 44% in quarter one this year compared to quarter one last year, with an $8 million reduction overall. And I think really importantly, $1.6 million reduction over Mardi Gras. In addition to that, we're on pace.
Can I interrupt you right there?
Absolutely.
So we have all of the Mardi Gras numbers, so the overtime from NOPD, DPW, Parks and Parkways, all the agencies?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And this is where we are?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This is everything. And the next slide is something that we didn't really report on rolling this out, but something I am going to also crow loudly about. Because in a vacuum, I can both see the public saying, A, well, okay, tell us about quality of services and what you've delivered. And also, B, well, you had the snowstorm, you had Super Bowl, you had the terrorist attack. So are you really comparing apples to apples? Well, buckle in, because if you look at Mardi Gras 2026, we actually had 20% more visitors this year than last year. So just comparing apples to apples, we're down $1.6 million, even though 20% more people visited this year. I know an issue that's near and dear both to the mayor's heart and something the council asked about is progress that's being made. And I know Councilmember Willard is going to have a briefing with safety and permits at the end of the month. Median approval time on total building and trade permit accounts from quarter one this year to quarter one last year is reduced more than half. That's significant progress as well. And then also DPW to date this year has turned on 2,000 lights, built 6,000 potholes, and moved over 300 barricades. So I want to be very clear that overtime is down and production is up. And I just don't think we can say that enough, because I know the mantra is with less is less. In this case, less is more. Members, also this overtime dashboard now exists. It is active on the council, on the CAO's website. It's called Overtime Management. And for the people who want to doubt sort of where we are in 25 to 26, you can see that the numbers are significantly less in January for this year as it was opposed to the year before. Also, same thing for February, we're a little bit above, but that's largely because Mardi Gras was included all of this year. But the biggest thing to me that merits a lot of discussion, in addition to the fact that overtime is down 44% from this quarter versus last, is look at the March numbers. The March numbers show $7.2 million in spending in overtime last year. And granted, there was a year of Mardi Gras last year in there. But this year, we're at $1.4 million. I would say to you members that I'll spot you $1 million to $1.5 million on Mardi Gras for that 1 week, and we're still $5 to $6 million better in March this year. Also, for for members of the past council who may relive this, remember, we were also asking the administration at that point about how overtime was being controlled, the measures that were being taken, and this shows that that wasn't being done at that point either. Whereas now you can see, I won't see a marked difference. The numbers are completely different. So again, I want to say a huge kudos to everybody who's worked on this and people who are making sacrifices to not only cut into their overtime, but also to make city services are high. In this vein of progress and visibility, the team that created the overtime dashboard also has this up. You can literally look at any single office you want to and see line by line what the overtime is for each one. So we just broke out police here because that's obviously going to be a significant overtime driver. But also we wanted people to see it's not just police. It's you got to look at where the superintendent is as opposed to the districts, as opposed to some of the police recruits. And some of these numbers absolutely shouldn't be surprising at all. For example, you would expect the 8th district, which is the French Quarter, to have higher overtime numbers than almost any other district just because of the number of people who are passing through there. So in our interest of trying to make things visible and in progress, that is what you can look at right now on CEO's website. In addition, I want to talk about quarter one, two things coming up as well. Abby teased the thing, about revenue estimating conference, which is news, candidly, I didn't think we would get to at this point. I thought we might be second or third quarter, but that, and I'm going to tip my hands here a little bit unless something happens, that it's actually probably closer to $30 million as opposed to $20 million. Actually, we got some Go Mesa funding that hadn't been recognized. So REC will be higher, so that is positive news, and again, a result of the work the two bodies have done together to make everything go as well as humanly possible. And then, of course, our charter mandated commitment collectively as well to the public is to have a quarterly budget reporting. That will be much longer and more robust than what I'm offering today. But we want to make sure that the council sees firsthand everything that we're doing to remain disciplined and how we're staying on track. And I know Councilmember Harris is looking at changing the date because I will be on vacation May 28th, so we'll make sure we do it a little bit earlier and get you everything you need. And last, this is less for the council, but I think, again, an important testament to the work of Mayor Moreno and the team, and I know I sent this to all of you, is a 90-day budget stabilization report, which really goes through all of the different ways departments are trying to reduce their spending, such as on overtime, how we're working on federal reimbursement dollars, what we're doing to manage the cash fund, and really try to create as much progress as humanly possible for the council to make sure that while revenue raising remains a piece of this, that we can look at you and say that we did as much as we possibly could to keep the budget on track. And then last,
I have a question.
Yeah, absolutely.
On the stabilization report. Can you just give us an update on RAN repayment, just so the thousands of people who are watching know?
The millions of people watching at home. So Alyssa has made all of the payments. I think there's two more that are left. It's about or less than $25 million. So we're ahead of the game when it comes to that. And I'm really proud of the fact that Alyssa and her team have worked so hard to make sure that they manage the city's cash and manage paying back the bank all at the same time. And then at this point, there's $13 million as of last week in the bank, plus $89 million to meet other obligations.
And then can you talk about the general alimony?
Sure.
What is it? And just break it down.
Yeah, absolutely. So the city has a number of different millages, most of which fund things that people think about all the time. Sewage and Water Board has a millage, the parks have a millage, early childhood has a millage, fire and police have millages, but there's also a millage called general alimony. That's just a fancy term for unrestricted money for the city of New Orleans. And so, members, we're faced with two different choices coming up. We can either go back to the State Bond Commission and to our lenders and say we're going to need another revenue anticipation note, and pay a significant amount of money in an extraordinarily short period of time, which again, just continues to inhibit the way that we do business. And candidly, it's going to be an incredible challenge because we found $100 million this year. There's not going to be finding of $100 million in one-time money next year. There will be some, but not to the same degree. So, council member, the plan that our financial advisors have discussed with us, which we think makes a lot of sense, is essentially to do long-term borrowing against our general alimony millage. And the couple of benefits to that are, number one, we'll get somewhere between $100 to $150 million off the bat. Number two, we are not paying it in this very constrained time period. And number three, as a result of the fact that a number of our bonds are going away, we're going to just use the payments that we had been using for those bonds to make up the money here, so we're not out of pocket new funds. So it's a really remarkable way to smooth out our cash flow pretty much for the future without constraining ourselves indefinitely and making spending so tight. So thank you for that question. And then last, this is I think, as you all know, 2027 budget is never far from the mind. And look, the bottom line is being CEO is a challenge frequently because my job is to tell lots of people no, and that goes with the territory. But at the same time, what I've tried to really empower people to understand is that this is no longer a department by department budget. It's an R budget. It's the city's budget. And because of that, because of the rigor that we've demanded of ourselves, we're going to demand of the departments as well. And so when they come to meet with us, really to be able to explain their expenses, their personnel, their operating, what we can do better. And just to close out here real quickly, as we're looking at 2027 budget, just want to let you know that we're going to continue looking at cutting other expenses as well. Alyssa has been bird dogging, and we've now created an internal tiger team on our healthcare plan, where we believe we can reduce millions of dollars from the plan as a result of just better work. So, as I say, this is about the departments. It's not just about them. It's about all of us together making a commitment to better service delivery and better results for the people of New Orleans.
Council members, any questions? All right. Any online questions?
No, ma'am.
No public comment either. Well, this has been pretty uneventful. Thank you so much. And that's a good way to be for this budget, uneventful.
That's what we want.
With that, I'll move to adjourn. Seconded by Councilmember Willard or McCarron. All in favor? Everybody says yes. Thank you.